Chapter 31. Besides the new star, which was an object so conspicuous that it was discovered widely except by astronomers, there was another astronomical occurrence in the month of June, 1918, an eclipse of the sun. It was observed in Oregon. We can't expect such a check-up as when Coogan's Bluff and the Consolidated Gas Company get into astronomy, but Oregonians set their alarm clocks and looked up at the sky. See Mitchell's Eclipses of the Sun, page 67. The astronomers admitted an error of 14 seconds in their prediction. Measurements of ordinary refinement are in hairbreadths, but a hair is coarse material to the ethereal astronomers who use filaments spun by spiders. And just where do the astronomers get their cobwebs? This book of ours is full of mysteries, but here is something that is not one of them. My own opinion is that an error of only 14 seconds is a very credible approximation, but it is a huge and grotesque blunder when compared with the fairy-like refinements that the astronomers dream of are theirs in matters that cannot be so easily checked up. To readers who are not clear upon this point, I repeat that predictions of eclipses cannot be cited in support of conventionality against our own expressions because whether upon the basis that this earth moves or is stationary, eclipses can be predicted, and lo, come to pass. But lo, if looking on there be an intelligent representative of the Consolidated Gas Company or an Oregonian with an alarm clock, predictions aren't just exactly what they should be. We have divided astronomers into professionals and amateurs, but wherever there are differences, there is somewhere the merging point that demonstrates continuity. W.F. Denning represents the amateur-professional merging point. He has never had a job, though it does not look to me that job is the right word, in an observatory, but he has written a great deal upon astronomical matters. He is an accountant in the city of Bristol, England. He has nothing to do with observatories, but has a celebrated backyard. Upon the night of August 20th, 1920, Denning sat in his backyard and in surroundings that were touched up most unacademically by cats on the fences, though observatory-like enough, with snores from back windows, he discovered Nova Cygni 3. This is another instance of a new star appearing close to where there had been preceding new stars, as if all were eruptions in one region of especially active volcanic land. There were earthquakes in this period. In the United States, there were the sudden deluges that are called cloudbursts. Upon the night of August 28th, a seismic wave drowned 200 persons on the island of Saghalien, off the east coast of Siberia, with, four nights. Astronomers of the so-called observatories had been photographing this star. Students of phenomena of somnambulism will be interested in our data. When Denning woke up the astronomers, they looked at what they had been unconsciously doing and learned that from the 16th of the month that the star had risen from 7th to about 3rd magnitude. A star of 3rd magnitude is a conspicuous star. In the whole sky there are photographic magnitudes, only 111 of this size. At any one time, not more than 40 of them are visible. The limit of visibility without a telescope is somewhere between the 6th and 7th magnitudes, so it is said. According to our data, the limit of seeing depends upon who's looking. I wonder what ironic fellow first called these snug little centers of inattention observatories. He had a wit of his own, whoever he was. Discovery of the new star, if not a comet, of August 7th, 1921, has been attributed to a professional wise man, Dr. Campbell of Lick Dormitory, but it was a brilliant and conspicuous appearance. Most of the new stars that professionals have discovered or have had discovered for them by the not very eagle-eyed females of Harvard have been small points of photographic plates. English Mechanic 114-211 records of observations by 4 amateurs before the time of Director Campbell's discovery. One of these observations was 24 hours earlier. Some time ago, I read an astronomer's complaint against heavy traffic near an observatory, though now I have different ideas as to an astronomer's dislike for disturbance. Night times, I was not so experienced then and innocently supposed that he meant that delicate instruments were jarred. a convention of Methodist ministers, and how agreeable it would be to note in the midst of preciseness and purity one of these parsons standing on his head. Or see the monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society, 1922, upon page 400. There is a diagram. Mistakes that I make and errors of yours, contrasting with the much advertised divinity of the astronomers. Page 400, in the midst of a learned treatise upon adiabatic expansions and convective equilibrium, is printed a diagram. It is upside down. I attended this convention of pedantries, of course inspired by a religious faith that is mine, that I'd not have to look far for a crook in its bombast, or somewhere a funny little touch of waywardness in its irreproachability. But especially I tended to pick out something of which in this year, 1922, the astronomers were boasting, to contrast with something they were doing. I picked out a long laudation upon an astronomer who had received a gold medal for predicting the motions of a star cluster for a term of 100 billion years, to contrast with September 20th. I think that's, 100,000 million billion years, to contrast with September 20th, 1922, an eclipse of the sun. See Mitchell's Eclipses of the Sun, page 67, and the predictions by the astronomers. They made one error of 16 seconds and another error of 20 seconds. There are persons who do not believe in ordinary fortune tellers, yet, without a quiver in their credulities, they read of an astronomical gypsy who tells the fortunes of a star for 100 billion years, though according to conventionality, that star is 60 times 60 times 24 times 365 times 100,000 times farther away than is the moon, motions of which cannot be exactly foretold unless the observations are going to be, say, at Baja de Paranagua or somewhere in Jungaria. The eclipse of September 20th, 1922 was checked up by police constables in Australia, but the eclipse of October 21st, 1930 was observed at Neofo. This time, the dispatches sent by the astronomers told of a complete success. The eclipse began exactly as predicted. There are records of seeming new stars that have blazed up like spasmodic eruptions, then dying out. For Dr. Anderson's report upon one of these appearances, May 8, 1923, see Popular Astronomy 31-422. Upon the 7th, Etna was active, earthquake in Anatolia, extraordinary rise and fall of the Mediterranean at Gibraltar. The observatories missed Dr. Anderson's observation, but at one of them a small new star was photographed, night of May 5th. I neglected to note whether on a photographic plate this was immediately detected. Upon February 13, 1923, an increase of the star Beta Certi was reported. There was interest in the newspapers. Maps of the sky were published. If newspapers start first-paging astronomical occurrences, putting down X marks for stars as well as for positions of bodies of the murdered, there will be more interest. This is dangerous to the astronomers, but so long as their technicalities hold out, they have good protection. Even so, there might be inquiries into what the observatories are doing when time after time only amateurs are observing. The observatories had, of course, missed this rise of Beta Ceti, But when told by an amateur where to look, professionals of Yerkes and Givizy confirmed the report. For the fullest account, see the Bullsock Astro de France of this period. Upon February 22nd, a yellow dust, perhaps a discharge from an increased volcanic activity in Cetus, fell from the sky in Westphalia. London Evening Standard, February 27th. The amateur this time was a schoolboy aged 16. Night of May 27, 1925, the Rip Van Winkles of the South African Observatory were disturbed by an amateur. He told them that there was a new star in the southern constellation Pictor. When they were aroused, the Rips looked up and saw the new star, and they stayed awake long enough to learn that, somnambulically, they had for months been photographing it. For months it had been gleaming over the observatories of 4 continents. There are slits in the domes of observatories. The fixed grin of a clown, the slit in the dome of an observatory. September 21st, 1930, that the astronomers had ascertained the heat received from the 13th magnitude star to be 631 times that of the heat from the faintest star visible to the unaided eye. That the faintest visible star radiates upon the whole United States no more heat than the sun radiates upon 1 square yard of said U.S. A grin in the dark, or the sardonic slit in an observatory, night times. Most likely the inmates haven't a notion what it is symbolized, but we contrast an alleged perception of 631 times the inconceivable with this item. In Popular Astronomy, 1925, page 540. That 44 nights before the amateurs' discovery, Nova Pictoris had shone as a star of third magnitude and had been perceived by no astronomer. The building that laughs, as a modern Victor Hugo would call an observatory with a slit in it. Fixed grin of the clown, and, according to theatrical conventions, his head is full of seriousness. September 24th, 1930, this is what came from a building that laughed, though its dome was full of astronomers. That, according to spectroscopic determinations at Mount Wilson, a distant nebula is moving away from this Earth at a rate of 6,800 miles a second. That, upon the day of the calculations, the distance of this nebula was 75 million times 60 times 60 times 24 times 365 times 186,000 miles. To appreciate the clownishness of this, see our data for accepting that the spectroscope tells about what is told by tea leaves in a teacup, which is considerable if one wants to be told considerable. To realize the pathos of this, think of the grinning old clown who gags have played out, who is driven to most extravagant antics to hold a little attention. Our general expression is that the inmates of this Earth's observatories are not astronomers but are mathematicians. Since medieval times, there has never been a shake-up in this system of ancient lore comparable with Lyellism in geology or Darwinism in biology, or the reconstructions of thought brought about by radioactivity in physics and chemistry. Einsteinianism was a slight shock, but it is concerned with differences of minute quantities. Mathematicians are incurable. They are inert to the new because the new is a surprise, and mathematics concerns itself with the expected. It does not occur to me that there might be good results if the next millionaire who contemplates donating a big telescope should instead send around to the observatories big quantities of black coffee. But such is the concordance between the twinkles of the stars and the nods of drowsy heads that I'd not much like to disturb such harmony. Nova Pictoris, like many other so-called new stars, was an increase of an old star. For 25 years, it had from time to time been photographed as a speck of the 12th magnitude. There is nothing on any photographic plate to indicate that another star was going to collide with it. It went up just as dimly shining or only slightly active volcanoes of this Earth sometimes become violent. No star has ever been seen to cross another star, but just such changes. Hold on. Let me see. Such changes as have been seen in volcanoes of this Earth have been seen in stars, mostly in their books, astronomers telling of what they call proper motion. Let me do that sentence again. Mostly in their books, astronomers telling of what they call proper motion do all that they can to give an impression of the stars as moving with tremendous velocities. But here is Newcomb, Astronomy for Everybody, page 327, quoted upon the subject. If Ptolemy should come to life after his sleep of nearly 1,800 years and be asked to compare the heavens as they are now with those of his time, he would not be able to see the slightest difference in the configuration of a single constellation.